Talking about your big deal with Twitter.
Yes.
Right, you came right after, 6 weeks later, after Publicis Starcom.
Yeah, but that's a very different deal. Starcom, as I understand, guarantees spending levels. That's not what we're about. We don't necessarily think that's the right thing to do. What we're about, and so let's be quite clear about it, is about working with Twitter on their data, understanding their data, and feeding that in to our understanding of television, your medium, newspapers, your medium, and trying to see what impact new media and social media have. So it's a totally different approach. We don't believe in those guarantees or guaranteed spending levels. We don't think that's our role.
In a sense, don't you think Twitter seems to have gotten a larger endorsement from marketers?
Our endorsement is about trying to use the data. If we have made an endorsement, I still think it's a PR medium, primarily. Okay. It's a very, very powerful information medium. And what we're doing is trying to use the data that they've got to understand consumer behavior in a more coherent and deeper way. And I think that's the fundamental thing, because what they've got is a lot of analysis to show that consumers, if you look at the Nielsen data in the US in the last year or so, particularly amongst younger age groups, audiences seem to decline. Now, if you look at the Twitter data, it seems that their engagement has got greater because they're using Twitter to communicate with one another as they watch the program. Sure. I mean, there's a wonderful graph, some data from Twitter, which shows activity during on-air and then activity after, which you'd expect it to tail off. But the activity on air is very, very significant. It depends, obviously, on which program you're talking about. Sure. So what Twitter is saying is that we may be seeing changes in the pattern of viewing between age groups and demographics, but the engagement is taking a different form, and the people are very highly engaged with the programs, or the people who are watching them are very, very highly engaged with them, but they're engaging in a very different way. You have to understand that. So, none of our competitors, including Publicis, have a consumer insight, what we're calling now a data investment management business, and that's a quarter of our revenues. It's excluded from the competition here at Cannes because there are no rewards for clever data investment management, which I think there should be. I've got a vested interest, and there should be. So it's changing. I think this is really very important. So it's not about monetary guarantees of spending, which we can have a debate about as well. It's about using the data, which is very powerful. And we've seen that. It's very interesting because we had a conversation with Twitter on this whilst we were here in Cannes. People focus on engagement on TV. It actually could be engagement in newspapers and magazines too.
I'd like to talk to you about Yahoo and the recent, big aggression in terms of, getting Tumblr on board, etc.
Well, all credit to Marissa. Yeah.
Can you give me a sense of how you think Yahoo is shaping up and juxtapose it?
Well, it's very early days. I mean, buying companies, as we all know, is not the key. It's easy to spend money. It's making it work that counts. And Third Point made their investment much lower down, and the proprietor of Third Point is an extremely astute man, as is Marissa Meyer, is an extremely astute executive, and I'm sure it'll be successful. But there's a long way to go in determining whether Yahoo will be able to carve out the position that Marissa is laying out. I mean, it's some of the prices that are being paid for these companies are on the high side, to say the least, and to make them work is not going to be easy. And of course, the company they're all trying to compete with is Google, and Google has this five-legged stool, as we referred to it, which is our relationship with Google is running now at the rate of $2 billion a year, which compares with the biggest media relationships we have around the world, out of the $70 billion that we manage, and that $2 billion with a target this year to go to $2.5 billion at least. So we're seeing still very significant growth, 25% growth, and in the first quarter of this year we've seen more than that. That growth is underpinned in 5 categories. In search, where of course they have a very strong position. Display, so they've increased their position. Video, with YouTube, where they're growing, and Full Screen is an example of a company that's a platform to YouTube. On social, and lastly on mobile. So all this posturing that's going on, all this buying that's going on, is really to try and deal with the elephant in the room, which is Google, which is in a phenomenally powerful position, and is already the fourth most valuable company on the planet, must be third.
Give me your sense of how the global economy is doing and what kind of recoveries you see.
Well, I think it's tepid. I mean, it's a bit like Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. India is good for us, being a bit more parochial about it. We grew last year by just under 10%. This year we'll grow by around 10%, we think. And we've got a big business in India, as you know, and a really fine business, and all our businesses are doing well, without exception, actually. And so that's really good. But India represents what's happening in the BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And we're probably actually not a good bellwether for what's happening in the economy because we're not part of the capital consumer goods, the capital goods sector. Capital consumer goods, cars and autos we are, FMCGs we are. So we follow the rise of the middle and lower middle class. And as you know, as Piyush Pandey said to me several months ago on a visit to Rajasthan, all his friends are trading in their two-wheelers for their four-wheelers. So progress continues. You go to tier 4 or 5 cities in China, you see tremendous growth, and we're in 80 cities in China. Brazil has this growing middle and lower middle class, and this is an irreversible, same with Russia on a smaller scale, this is an irreversible process. So what happens to us, if the Chinese say the 12 5-year plan is going to be about 7.5% growth, and that's lower than it has been before, that's not a disaster for us because they also say we're switching from savings to consumption.
Sure.
And we're putting in a social security safety net to make sure, and we're building service businesses. So the general atmosphere in the BRICS and Next 11 is good. Western Europe's still an issue, but less so. I think the UK is doing quite well. Germany is certainly okay, maybe growing a bit. The 3 problem areas are France, Italy, and Spain. Italy, even without a government, is doing okay by us. Spain has shown some signs of improvement, but you've got this massive unemployment there. 50% amongst the youth, which is terrible, socially devastating. 25% generally. But there are some signs of changes there. The Rajoy labour market reforms have helped, and we may see some more of those, so that will help even more. France, I think, is where people have focused their attention in the last 6 months or so, and is still problematic. From America, certainly an improvement, although the sequester has slowed things, but I think the second half will improve even more, but the economy is better. If you look at things functionally, media planning and buying, media investment management continues to grow well, and direct digital interactive. Our custom businesses, our project businesses, particularly in the mature markets where people are cutting spending, have obviously had a harder time. But if you look at the converse of that, which is those custom businesses in the fast growth markets, so whether it be consumer insight, market research, public relations, healthcare, branding and identity, they're doing well in the fast growth market. So we open up in Myanmar, with 60 million people, which will be, a market of the ilk of Vietnam, about 3/4 of the size, but similar to the size. I mean, there's a big opportunity there to work with consumers.
Thank you so much.
Good.
As usual, always a pleasure. Lovely.
Thanks very much indeed. Good.